Hello, gentlemen.
All right.
I see you
Everybody-
eavesdropping, Ben Cherington.
Yeah, Ben is here, and I think we have a lot of our people on here right now, so we're good to go. Any questions for Ben? Savannah, I'm glad you hooked on there because I forgot to send you the link, but I'm glad you're on there. Thank you.
No problem, thanks.
Hey, Ben, what went into your guys' decision to start Yohure today? Is that a way to get him some innings? Is this something you mentioned earlier that you might drop guys into the rotation during the season? Is this an example of that?
I think that's kind of what it is. Yeah. When we get these stretches of games where maybe there's an opportunity to give a start to Yohure, there may be others that we try to do that with over the course of the season. And then, it gives other guys an extra day. So a combination of we want to give some exposure to guys, give guys some experience. Also, when we can, buy an extra day for the guys that have been taking regular turns.
Ben, I know there's probably not like a magic number for this, but asking about Gregory Polanco in right field and looking at his production, maybe compared to other outfielders, is there a period of time, I'm just making arbitrarily like 2 months or 40 games or whatever, where you guys will remain committed to playing him every day? And then is there a point where maybe you change or evaluate who's out there based more on production, or how much runway do you think is fair to give him?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure I'm going to have a totally satisfying answer for you, but I'll say what I can, which is that, as I've said before, and we've said before, we've got to find out more about our outfield group, who can be part of what we're trying to build here. We have and expect to continue to give opportunities to different guys just to learn more about them. And Gregory's one of those guys. Gregory's part of that group. And, we want to see improvement. We want to see improvement over time out of that entire group. And, Gregory's one of the guys in that group. So I can't give you, there's no magic, date or specific answer to, how long would we give or how much playing time. It's going to be case by case a little bit. But we do want to continue to learn more about guys who may be able to make a contribution in our outfield over time and ultimately see improvement from that group. It's important. And, would include Gregory in that and, continue to believe that he can do that. He's healthy and he's playing again now, obviously missed a few days. And he's still hitting the ball hard and all the stuff we've talked about. And still believe he can be a good major league player. And I know he's working hard towards that, and we'll continue to sort of support him towards that.
Hey, Ben. Sorry, let's just take a drink first. When you're building a roster out of a pandemic season like that short season where things are just weird, do you anticipate weeks like this where just seems like every day someone's going down, or is this just sort of a normal bad luck sort of thing that's just happened in the last 7 days here?
Yeah, I guess, I think every team kind of goes through their stretches where, when it rains, it pours type thing. And on the position player side, we've kind of had our stretch here recently. And you just got to weather that storm. You got to grind through it. And, obviously when you're missing guys at one time, it's just going to make it harder on the offensive side, when you're missing guys that coming into the season, you thought you'd sort of count on for regular at-bats and production. So we just got to grind through that. Guys have an opportunity to step up. Obviously cool to see Will Craig last night get his first hit and home run and hit a ball really hard the other way. It's something he's put real work on since he was sent out of Major League camp. So encouraged to see that. Hopefully see other guys do the same.
Ben, with Will Craig, do you anticipate giving him a little bit longer runway here, or is it the kind of thing where you're not willing to give an answer, you're going to wait and see how he performs and then judge it from there?
I think we certainly, there's just generally opportunity on the position player side, right? And so there's opportunity for guys to earn more of that opportunity. And last night was a good start for Will. So he's back in there tonight. Look forward to seeing him.
Kind of tie back to the outfield situation you have right now. You've got 5 guys who I know Gamble's played a little first base, but are pretty exclusively outfielders right now. And I know that's part of the roster construction with so many guys on the IL, but with the shortened bench for most of this year, is that something that could really coexist with how just this roster is constructed going forward?
Yeah, I'm sure it'll evolve kind of over the course of the next several weeks. Certainly as we get guys back, expect to get, certainly optimistic that guys like Moran and Evans and Key also, we could see all of them before too long. And so, knock on wood, we'll see where we are when those guys are ready. But the roster may evolve a little bit. It's just hard to predict exactly where we'll be. I think what we have attempted to do with some of the more recent changes is just to make sure that we have as many options for Shelty as we possibly can, so that we're not asking too much of any one player and potentially risking further injury. As much as we've sort of gone through the when it rains it storms period, we'd like that storm to end as quickly as possible and not continue. And one of the ways it might continue is if we don't have enough options, don't have enough depth, and we're asking guys to do more than maybe they should. So just trying to stay as deep as we can, and again, encouraged by where we are with some of the injury guys and their progression, and hopefully not too long from some of those guys coming back.
And going back to Jason's question, does Mitch Keller fit in that category too? You want to give him as much rope as he needs to get back on track?
Yeah, always a little bit different with pitching, because there's always sort of opportunity to pitch, and there's going to be innings, and it's important that Mitch continues to pitch. And I know I've said before on these calls that we are encouraged and happy with his effort between starts, the things he's focused on, the things he's working on. Clearly, there's more improvement to happen. He knows that. We know that. And there's been inconsistency there, outing to outing, in terms of bringing the practice work into the game. We've seen flashes, and he knows, and we know that we need to see it more consistently. So again, as long as he's making the effort in between starts, putting that work in that we think he needs to, we know he needs to pitch, and we're looking forward to seeing him pitch on Sunday.
And is there a date yet for Brian to start a rehab assignment, and is he still progressing well?
Nothing finalized, but we're working on that. We've got some calendars kind of in pencil, and I think we'll be getting with Brian here on that, shortly. He is progressing well. He, had a good day yesterday. Says he feels great. And and then we just have to be mindful that it's been long enough now since the first couple of days of April that we've got to build the whole body back up, the whole player. And it's not just the wrist. We got to make sure that, all of him is ready to play Major League Baseball games again. So we'll have a calendar. It'll include a minor league rehab assignment, minor league games. And I think we're getting closer to that.
Hey, but I know we're in still a very small sample size, but have you gotten at least maybe a general impression yet of how your minor leaguers have kind of bounced back from, for the most part, being inactive for a year? And tied in with that, are you pleased with the way that you guys were able to handle the past year, keeping these guys active and to get whatever you could get out of that year?
Yeah, we're generally pretty encouraged by the early results, a week and a half in. One of the things we talked about in minor league spring training, and then as we got into the season, was really trying to make sure we were shifting the mindset back towards competition, back towards playing baseball games, and not just training. There was a lot of training that happened, and we saw and a lot of good training that happened, and I think we saw a lot of examples of guys who found a way to get better, and I think we learned from that, that there's ways to get better even in a very non-traditional time or unusual time. that said, we're playing baseball games. We know ultimately, playing baseball games is important, and ultimately winning baseball games is important no matter where you are. So we wanted to make sure we were shifting our mindset back towards that as players, as teams, as a staff, et cetera. So we just started talking about that more in spring training, trying to guide that. And we've, done some things early in this season in terms of, just the way we're preparing for games and things, just try to push that mindset. So we're encouraged by that. There's been, I think generally speaking, our teams have gone out and competed well and, won their fair share of games. We've had some good individual performances, not perfect, but a lot of good ones, and knock on wood, relatively healthy so far. So look forward to seeing more. It's been a blast, watching games again.
Ben, I wanted to ask you about watching games and sort of like your process. Do you go in your office and you're like on MILB TV and like flipping through 4 games, or do you just like to go in person and just watch with your own 2 eyes? Like, just how do you logistically consume information on 4 different teams plus the Major League One on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, well, John Baker I think he showed me like a screenshot of his living room where he had, like 3 laptops and a TV and like an iPad or something. And so I think we all find our way, but no, I have not had that many set up at once. When we're home here, up in the suite, we'll have multiple monitors going. We can get, if there's a minor league feed on, we'll have it playing in the suite. If I'm in my office, I can at least have a couple screens up. But we also are getting the feeds, pretty regularly. So, if I want to go, watch what Michael Burrows did, or tomorrow, if I want to go watch what Michael Burrows did tonight, I can dial that up pretty easily. So there's different ways to do it. And then of course we're getting feedback from our staff also every day. And there's data coming in every day. So there's a lot of ways and pretty easy to keep up on what's going on.
Just to check on one of those guys, Ben, real quick, if I could. Brennan Malone, I don't think has pitched for Bradenton yet. Is there anything going on there?
Just had a blister. As he was in Bradenton. He's with the Bradenton team. Was getting ready to pitch with their regular group. Developed a blister. So just slowed him down a little bit. He's back up off a mound now, throwing bullpen sessions. So I would expect that he'd be back in games before too long.
Hey, Ben. Not really a Pirate specific question, but sort of sticking the minors here, specifically in, I guess, Bradenton's league. Have you followed how this first couple weeks of the automated strike zone have gone? I noticed something that the games aren't necessarily shorter, but have you noticed a difference there, just in general as a baseball executive?
I haven't had an opportunity to really talk enough with the staff there to get their feedback. I do have it on my calendar to get to all of our affiliates. I was in Altoona last week, and we'll get to all of our affiliates at some point before the draft, including Bradenton. I haven't had a chance to get a lot of feedback yet on the strike zone itself. I know there was some data last week. I think that walks were up a little bit in that league, maybe not necessarily with us, but as a league. So, but I haven't gotten much yet, and I guess I would say I would suggest we need a little bit more time, a little bit more data to really make sense of how it's affecting things.
Ben, you mentioned you were in Altoona. Guilty of overreacting to 2 starts, but what can you tell fans about Contreras and what he's doing down there?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been really good. Obviously, I think what we saw, it's a couple of years ago with the Yankees when we, as we were sort of looking at that, was he's always had, pretty good feel for using his stuff in different parts of the strike zone and even outside of the strike zone. So we saw that as a young pitcher with the Yankees that, he just had a good feel for moving his breaking ball around, kind of depending on the count, and some sense of how to do that. We also liked and really still like the athleticism and how he moves. And now the stuff's just ticked up. So, velocity's crept up a little bit. The power of the breaking balls, also with the breaking balls, and he's throwing, 2 different breaking balls, curveball, and a slider. And he's just throwing all his pitches. He's been throwing all his pitches where he wants them for the most part. So combination of that and feel for moving the ball in and out and just the velocity of stuff creeping up a little bit, it's a good combination. And he's been on a nice roll so far, and exciting to see.
Ben, is it tempting at all with a guy like him? You know, I know you can't be hasty with these things, but is it tempting at all from a selfish perspective, I guess, when you see him dominate, when you see Swaggerty, you know, off in the first couple of games in AAA to move those guys up, to hurry that along, or do you have to kind of temper yourself?
I mean, I think one of the things we talked about during minor league spring training coming out of that was just like, there's just so much unknown. Like we did the best we could to make decisions on placements and where a guy's going to be, what the opportunities are going to be. But it was harder than normal. And we made some assignments that, you know, we knew maybe were a little aggressive. And we, at the time, you know, made sure we told ourselves and then remind ourselves, put it on the calendar, like, let's give this some time. You know, whether the performance is encouraging out of the gate or whether the performance is not as encouraging out of the gate, we just got to give this some time and be patient. So I think we need to do that on both ends, I guess, of the performance. That's what we're trying to do. We'll keep an eye on it. You know, as I said before, we want guys to be in a spot where they're challenged, you know, where it's not easy for them, but also not overwhelmed. And we'll keep an eye on that best we can.
What kind of measuring stick do you use for that? Is there a certain number of at-bats or plate appearances? Or, I mean, I know there's no magic number, but do you have even a guideline?
More than a week and a half, but I don't know exactly, you know. And I mean, it's similar to Major League season, right? Like we all kind of had to adjust to 60 games. Now we're adjusting back to 162. So it's going to be longer than it was last year. In the minor leagues, we have, you know, mostly a full season. And, you know, typically I think even in a normal year, we wouldn't probably make decisions on moving guys until we at least have several weeks of the season in. So, you know, can't say that's going to apply perfectly to everyone, but generally speaking.
How much of that, whenever you're making those decisions, you know, just big picture, how they've looked overall, and how much of it is individual, like Contreras' changeup needed to play better, but if the other stuff is just dominating so much, can you really assess it there at AA?
Yeah, no, I think there are some things sometimes where you can, you know, literally just ask a player to do something, not specifically with Contreras, but if there's still some skill that, you know, we feel like, well, we'd like to see improvement here. We still think this is the level. Everything else is going well, but let's just focus on the skill for a little bit longer. You know, I think we can do that. But yeah, like you do want to avoid, you know, you want to avoid that, like if performance is so good that it's making it harder for the focus level to be as high in practice or other areas, then, you know, that's the kind of thing you want to avoid. But then the other thing is, and we would be clear on this too, and it's important that, you know, we want to see other things like, you know, what kind of teammate are they being, and, you know, what's their behavior off the field and work ethic, and, you know, those things are important too and would be a consideration.
And you talked in the past when it came to trades about your willingness to go after guys maybe who are a little bit riskier, but who are sexier guys who have bigger upside than some. Does that apply to the draft as well? And yes, this is basically me asking me who you're going to take at number one.
I think it applies. I mean, it has to a little bit because those players are further away. You know, there are really good players in the major leagues. We're going to need a lot of really good players, major league players, position players and pitchers, and they come from all different places. And there's a lot of really good position players and pitchers in the major leagues who were never perceived to be, you know, super high upside or, super high profile or anything like that. So we're just as interested in those players, so when I've talked about seeking upside, it's not only towards the furthest away kind of highest variable type player. But if you're talking about the draft and international scouting, that is kind of what those players are for the most part, even a college player. So yeah, we're looking for the player who, has a chance to have the highest possible impact on the Pirates. And then we, at least high in the draft. And if we're talking about investing bigger dollars in international players, and then there's other ways to acquire other players, that like through trade or different ways where you can kind of fill out that portfolio, balance the portfolio out a little bit with other kinds of guys. And that's really important too.
When you're going 1-1, how much of a different animal is that with regards to those criteria as opposed to picking 5th or 8th or 25th?
Hopefully at 1-1, we're not, having to choose between, and we want as much certainty and as much upside as possible at 1-1. I think hopefully that's what you're hoping for there. I don't think we're any. I'm not sure really any closer to figuring out than we were the last time we talked. There's several players that we're bearing down on, and confident we'll have a chance to get a good one.
Then the baseball draft is so different than other sports. And you hear in other sports, people say, you got to get that number 1 pick. In baseball, that's not necessarily the case. Do you view it that way as well? Because you get a lot of people that want to say, oh, they should not win a ton of games this year to get the number 1 pick. What's the difference for you between picking maybe number 1 in the draft and say 15th, middle of the first round sort of thing?
Well, we'd rather be picking at the end of the first round. I mean, that's what we're shooting for, and hopefully we get there and stay there. But while we're not, while we're picking where we are, we got to try to take full advantage of that. And historically, there is a pretty clear value curve historically. If you look at just the historic average return that teams get with the first pick and the 15th pick and the 30th pick and the 50th pick, there is a pretty clear curve, as there is in other sports. I don't know exactly how it compares to other sports, but historically, the number 1 pick is a better player than the 30th pick. So on average, so we've got to take advantage of that when we're there.
Ben, talking about the present roster for a second, what are some of the intangibles you've seen from Richard Rodriguez that lead you to believe he's going to be one of those classic baseball ninth inning closers?
He just, I think the thing that really stands out is just he is, whatever sort of language or metaphor you want to use, ice water in his veins, or just even just nothing bothers him. He's just very comfortable on a mound, pitching in leverage situations. Just does not seem to affect him at all. And in terms of his execution, and when you see him get in messier situations, which has not been very often this year, but when he does, he just seems to be able to compose himself and make a pitch. And then he's got unique stuff. He's got this fastball that just really works, and combination of the way it acts and the deception and the command. And, especially when he's getting the slider in the mix enough, it's a really good combination. But the demeanor, and I think the mental skills really just help him thrive in that situation.
And you've got a couple guys in Tyler Anderson, Richard Rodriguez, Adam Frazier, I would imagine probably are pretty popular, will be pretty popular in terms of trade talks. What are the challenges of doing something now on May 14th? And I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying that, doing something early versus at the deadline. How do you sort of weigh that, or what's your approach on stuff like that?
I think we just try to stay in touch with teams best we can, and just continue to get a sense of where teams are and what they're interested in, how motivated they are, and trades require motivation from at least two sides, and the only way you're going to know that is just to stay in touch with teams, keep talking, and if it's meant to be between two teams or three teams or whatever it is, then you find it, and you never really know when you're going to find it. It could be tomorrow, it could be a month from now, it could be July 31st.
It's a very romantic way to put it there, Ben.
And I wanted to ask about Kai Tom. And I guess, first of all, did you know that he was going to be this pesky of an at-bat whenever you got him, if that was in the report? And second, it feels like there's just been like a lot of times where he's seen 7-8 pitches and then flown out. And obviously that's taxing on a pitcher, but is there a way to quantify like how valuable that at-bat still was, even if it resulted in an out?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, we looked at him pretty closely last winter in preparation for the Rule 5, because obviously he was eligible for that. And he was one of the players that we considered at that time. So we spent quite a bit of time on that, and that was kind of one of the things we focused on, was our scouts focused on, and what the data showed was that we believed he'd have a chance to have good at bats at the major league level based on his swing decisions and the quality of the contact. And for the most part, that's what we've seen, pretty good at bats and making pitchers work. And when he gets a mistake, he can hit it hard, and he takes a walk, and it's a nice guy to have. He's gotten a chance to play a lot, partly because we have been a little banged up, and we'll continue to hope to see him. I think he'll continue to get opportunity. We'll see what he does with it. The other part, I think there is, yes, a way to quantify, what just pitches seen means. It's not, if you do it like one at bat of 10 pitches, I'm not sure that single event is hugely impactful. But if you keep doing that over a course of a season, yeah, we think it adds up to value.
Hey, Ben, question about David Bednar. When you acquired him this winter, was that driven more by your analytics department or by the scouting department? And is there any one person in either department who was really more bullish on him than anyone?
Yeah, it was both. I think from the scouting end, I believe Andrew Lorraine was one of the pro scouts that had seen him and had a report. Joe Douglas from our informatics group, and he's really more, we've kind of changed some of the terminology, but he's in our professional acquisition group. Was someone who had dug into him from a data perspective. So it was both. And obviously he's from around here, so we had some personal background as well.
Anything else for Ben? All good. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stop recording.